So should you go for Varka, Flins, Skirk, or Escoffier? This is probably one of the most complicated patches to choose from, honestly, because 3 of those characters are going to overlap being the same role. Flins and Skirk and Varka are all going to be main DPSs, so it's probably much harder for you guys to choose the right one for your account. In this video, I'll be comparing all of the characters, I'll be listing their pros, cons, and when should you get each of them. But wait, if you're trying to get any of these characters, what do you think the right way is to get Genesis Crystals? You guessed it right, it's Ldshop.gg. Ldshop is a cheap, fast, and safe game top-up website that offers top-ups for many games, including Genshin Impact. As you guys can see here, these are the offers they have for Genshin, and all of them are cheaper than the official game store, up to 30% cheaper. For example, you can see that 3,280 Genesis Crystals offer. It costs $50 on the official game store, but it only costs $37.39 on Ldshop. That's $1,261 or more than 25% saved just by using Ldshop. They also have many other things like bundles, character outfits, Welkins, and stuff like that. When you want to buy, you just want to click on the offer you want to choose. For example, I'm going to buy the 300 Genesis Crystals offer. You just need to enter your server region and user ID. Obviously, make sure they're right. Then you just want to click on top up, choose your payment method, enter your details, and pay. And shortly after that, you're just going to get the Genesis Crystals on your account. And right now, if you use my link, you can get a 15% off coupon, also an extra 5% off. That can save you up to $50. They also have more cool things on the website. For example, if you spend more than $80 in a month, you can win a free Welkin. Just go check it out yourself. Click the link in the description or the pinned comment and top up now. Alright, so back to the video. As I said, I'm just going to list the pros and cons of each character, and then I'm going to compare between all of them at the end. Starting off with Varka, Varka is going to be our newest main DPS. He's going to be a Mondstadt character, and he's just an Nemo dual-wielding Claymore main DPS. He's also going to be a pretty unique character, to be honest, because he's going to be able to deal 2 elements instead of 1, which is definitely unusual. If we're talking about his pros, the first pro is going to be that, which is that he's going to have versatile elements, and obviously that's just going to make him a versatile character in general. We rarely see characters that can deal multiple elements, so having Varka there, you can just change up your teammates and then you can just tailor him for different types of content, which is super good, obviously. So if you have like cryo content or cryo shields, for example, you can play him with his pyro teams. If you have electro content, you can use the cryo teams and so on. So it's just having 4 potential elements in one character is obviously just going to be a big pro. The second pro is that it's going to be kind of free-to-play friendly. He does have some decent free-to-play weapons and also decent free-to-play teammates, so yeah. The second pro is that he's going to have good synergy with older units, especially the Mondstadt units, but in general he's gonna have super good synergy with Mondstadt units like Fenty, for example, or Bennett or whatever, and that's gonna be pretty valuable, especially for people who had these characters like way back in the day. They can just get him and they'll probably have a team ready for him, especially older players, so that's a pretty good thing, and his teams in general are just gonna be super versatile. The last pro about Varka, I would say, is that his potential to be better is gonna be pretty high. The reason I say that is that we just have some key supports that are not out yet for him, mainly just Nicole. So he'll probably be a little better with Nicole's release. And also in the future, since he's not a not cry character right now, obviously he's not going to be super into the meta. But in the future, for example, when we see the not cry meta like dying down a little bit and the content is not tailored for that, then we'll probably see his value increase more. Especially that we know we're probably going to see cryo characters in general having their value increase. And him being a possible potential cryo main DPS is probably going to put him in at least a little bit of a better position than he's at right now. Because right now, the whole meta is just like the lunar meta and stuff like that. So when that ends, he'll probably gain a little bit more value. Oh yeah, and also the last thing is this is mainly just a main DPS comparison. I'll just add on like the numbers. Varka in general for his average teams with like an average build, C0, is probably going to be around like 106k DPS, which is not top tier right now, but it's definitely decent DPS. So I just want to keep that in mind. Moving on to his cons, the first con, and obvious one, is what I just said. He's going to have a lower damage ceiling for now at least. His damage doesn't seem to be rivaling like the top tier characters we have right now. It's still pretty decent damage, don't get me wrong, and you can easily clear with it like most content. But the thing is, for main DPS, you know, you just want to look at his damage, and his damage is not rivaling like the top characters. So I'm pretty sure that's going to be a disappointment for a lot of people. So that's definitely a con about Varka. The second con about him is that just the current state of the game is just going to punish versatility, which seems to be his main thing. He's definitely made to be like a versatile character that can can use in multiple scenarios and stuff like that. But honestly, the game right now just doesn't seem to reward that. The best characters are just characters that are good on their niche. You use them when you need them and you don't use them anywhere else. But for the characters that are more like generalist characters, they're just not doing well in general when Genshin Impacts right now. And he's just made to be a versatile character, so obviously he's not going to be the best DPS, obviously. He's just going to be a versatile DPS, but not the best DPS. The last con about him, which I talked about in the pros actually, which is that he just has incomplete teams sort of right now, with one of his potential best supports, Nicole, being not out yet. So he does have potential to be better, but we also don't know how much better is he going to be. So we just don't have the full picture for his teams right now and his like full potential. If you get him, you're basically gambling a little bit. So it is a con. But yeah, for Varka, that's pretty much it. Now moving on to the second DPS on this banner, which is going to be Flins. We had Flins for a while. Flins is just going to be a lunar charged non-crime main DPS. You basically just need a Hydro with him to activate lunar charge, and you're going to be dealing pretty good amounts of damage. For his pros, honestly, there's not much going on. He's just going to deal super good damage, which is what you need for a main DPS as I explained before. Flins is going to be probably like a top 5 or top 3 DPSs right now in the game, and that's pretty good. And the second one is that it's going to have pretty easy rotations and playstyle. So yeah, there's not much else to say about it. But again, for main DPS, as long as he deals enough damage, everything else probably just doesn't matter. And for Flins' damage, for his average team in general at C0, again, this is like an average estimate, but it's probably going to be around like 130k DPS, or maybe even more sometimes, but that's considerably better than Varka's damage. So yeah, Flins is definitely just going to be a top tier DPS in the game right now. And yeah, that's pretty much it. For his cons, I would say the only con he has is just going to be limited team types and teammates, both of them. For team types, you're basically forced to just play him in a lunar charge team. You just have no other options literally. And for teammates, he does require specific teammates to perform at his best too. And unfortunately, most of them are going to be 5 stars too, which is unfortunate. So without Inefa, for example, his damage is going to tank. Without Columbina, his damage is also not going to be the greatest, although it's less impactful. But in general, if you want to hit that 130k number that I spoke about before, you definitely want to make sure you have at least one premium teammates with Flins, either Columbina or Inefa, or preferably both, which can be a little, it's not easy to just get 3 5-star characters just to build one team. Now, the last DPS we have on this batch is just going to be Skirk. We've had Skirk for a while now, and she basically still does the same thing. She's a cryo main DPS. She just deals cryo damage, and she's one of the best DPSs in the game. And yeah, for pros, she's just going to have super high damage, probably also in the top 5 in the game right now with a twist that I'm going to talk about in a bit. But in general, she's just going to have pretty good damage, also pretty good AoE damage, and that's super good. The second pro about her is that she's going to be pretty easy to play. You don't even need energy. Simple playstyle is just basically normal attacks. You do need to learn some combos if you want to maximize her, but in general they're going to be pretty easy to learn, and once you get them you're probably fine. So I wouldn't call her hard to play. I'd just say she's more of like an easier character to play in general. Third pro about Skirk, and it's a big one in my opinion, is that she's going to be independent of the lunar not crime meta. Why I say that is that even though we have more characters that have the potential to deal more damage than Skirk, for example Nefer, Flins, Zipai, so she's technically in the top 5, but honestly in my opinion she's still top 3 because a lot of these characters are just going to share the same team basically, mainly for Columbina. All 3 of those main DPSs will need Columbina to maximize their damage, but Skirk just doesn't. So if you want to build 2 teams for the Abyss, for example, or for whatever, you just cannot have, for example, like Flins and Zipai at both of their maximum peak. You're going to need to just put Columbina in one team, and then the other team is just going to have to settle for a less optimal Hydra applier. So if you want a high damage team, independent of the not crime meta, Skirk is probably one of the few options you can have, is either Moika or Skirk. For the rest of the characters, you literally cannot have 2 teams performing at their best when they're both lunar teams, because Columbina is just not going to be able to be used in 2 teams. That's pretty much it. So Skirk being independent of that whole like side of the meta is actually a big con in my opinion, or a big pro, sorry. And yeah, finally for her damage, for Skirk's teams in general with Escoffier, C0, average build in general, it's probably going to be around like 135k, maybe a little less, a little more, it depends, but she's definitely a pretty good character, and it's definitely one of the highest damage dealers in the game. For her cons, it's pretty much the same thing. For Flynn, she just have limited teams with limited teammates. You basically just need Escoffier. You also need to only play her with Hydras and Cryos, so her teams are not really versatile, but then again, it's just fair in my opinion. I think it's fine for a main DPS that deals super high amounts of damage. You won't expect them to also be versatile at the same time, so it is a con, but it's not a big one in my opinion. Now for the last character in this patch, which is the only non-main DPS, that's going to be Escoffier. Escoffier is just going to be a support and buffer basically. For pros, she's just going to give you good cryo and hydro resistance shred, which is pretty valuable for cryo and hydro main DPSs. She's also going to be able to heal you, so she can fill that sustain slot. And she's also going to have good off-field damage of her own, which is pretty good. So yeah, she's a very good overall support in general for mainly like cryo or hydro teams. And she's going to be pretty decent in a lot of teams, mainly for cryo main DPSs like Skirk, for example, Risley, just whatever. For her cons, she's also limited to mainly just cryo hydro teams, preferably. You can use her sometimes outside of them, but she's really not worth it outside of that. So if this is not your cup of tea, then Escoffier is probably not a character you'd want to go for. So she's more of like a niche support. Alright, so now finally moving on to the final conclusion, which characters should you pick? So if you need a main DPS, I mean obviously since all of them are going to be main DPSs pretty much, I'd say Varka is probably not the best option honestly. I don't think is like the go-to meta option right now at least. So if you just need a strong main DPS, I'd say the option is just between Skirk or Flins. Between Skirk and Flins, I'd say the obvious answer is just going to be if you have Enougha and Columbina, then you go for Flins. And if you have Escoffier or you're planning to get Escoffier since she's in the actual banner, then just go for Skirk. If you have all of that, then between Skirk and Flins, I'd say they're generally around the same level in my opinion. So it really doesn't matter. At that point, I'd say just go for whoever you like the most. But if you don't have Escoffier and you didn't get Enougha or Columbina, which probably won't rerun for a while at least because Enougha just reran and Columbina we just had her banner like 2 patches ago. So if you didn't have any of those, then getting Flins is probably not a good idea. If you don't have Escoffier or you're not planning to get Escoffier, then getting Skirk is also not going to be a good idea. And honestly, that's the point that I'm going to add. If you're planning to just get one premium character without building any teams for them, but if you're planning to just get one 5-star and you have enough for one 5-star and you don't have Enougha, Columbina, or Escoffier, in that case, I think Varka might not be too bad of an option, honestly. Because if we're talking more like non-premium teams or like non-perfect teams, I think Varka is going to be very comparable to Skirk and Escoffier. So if you're planning to just get one character and you probably already have Bennett, for example, you probably already have some of his teammates, in that case, Varka might not be too bad of an option. But if you're planning to invest a little bit, if you're planning to get an extra 5-star like Enougha, for example, or Escoffier, I definitely recommend Skirk or Flins. I think that's probably the right option to do. But yeah, that was the video, guys. Tell me what you guys think in the comments and what you're getting. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.